What's going on, guys? Today's episode is about Charlemagne, more specifically, how he became crowned the first Holy Roman Emperor. So, Charlemagne, aka Charles I, aka Charles the Great, was more than just a dude with a cool name. He was a pretty ruthless emperor who consolidated a massive part of Europe for the first time. He brought along the Carolingian Renaissance, which did a huge job in saved a ton of history from like Roman Empire, Greek before it. He built a ton of like Christian monasteries at the time as well. So, how does he get to become the first Holy Roman Emperor? Really, it's a story of two families, two lineages kind of vying for power. On one side, we had the Merovingians, who had been kings for a while, and on the other side were the Carolingians, which is where Charlemagne comes from. They were known as the Mayors, Mayor, which is, quick translation, it's like they were known as mayor of the palace, Mayor, mayor, you get the picture. So Merovingians, they descended from Clovis, um, and they had divine power. It was passed down through the family. And the Carolingians were named after Charlemagne. It's like a German language thing. So Charles is really like Carolingian. I'll let you get yourself there. So, anyways, the Carolingians are mayors, and they're the mayors of the palace. So they oversee plots of land, they have castles, they have armies, they have local support. What they don't have is divine claims to power like the Merovingians do. Since Clovis became king, his family line is becoming weaker and weaker as time progresses. This is really because the Merovingians kept their power by taking treasure in land, and they, over time, were taking less treasure and accumulating less land, so they have less stuff to give out to their knights to keep people happy. And in the generation since Clovis, that's why they've been weakening. They're still technically the kings. That really has like air quotes around it. They're the kings in the way the Sacramento kings are the kings, if you know what I mean. The real power rests with the Carolingian mayors. They have the armies and whatnot. So the power struggle is taking place within these two lands. Um, it's Austrasia and Neustria. I don't know. I'll put the names on the screen. It's modern day France, Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, Netherlands, a whole bunch of stuff in that kind of area of Europe. And the Carolingians, they want power, but they can't have it. Even though they're stronger in pretty much every way than the Merovingians, they don't have divine right. And that's when the Pope comes in. So the Pope and the papacy, as popage in general is known or whatever. The Pope holds power over Rome at this time. He even has this fancy title. He is Pontifex Maximus, which is incredibly Roman. The Pope at this time, they don't totally want this power because it brings some unwanted attention, especially from these people up to the north, known as the Lombards. Um, so far, the Pope and the papacy have been relying on the Byzantine Empire for protection, but the Byzantines are getting a little bit weaker. Lombards are getting a little stronger. In these Lombards, they're like German tribes. They're to the north of the Pope, and they're gaining power, which the Pope wants no part in. He needs protection. Excuse me. And this eventually is going to lead to him crowning Charlemagne as the Emperor of Rome. But how does that connection get made? It's not like current times. They're not like, shooting each other DMs and, stuff like that. How do these people come to be connected? So I think first we got to take a step back. Let's go to Charlemagne's grandfather, who is Charles Martel, aka the Hammer. He's the mayor of the palace, and there is an Arab invasion that comes up through Spain, and it meets where Martel is at, and this is called the Battle of Tours, or if you want to be a little pinky out with it, the Battle of Poitiers. And he's going up against the Umayyad Caliphate. So Charles and his Frank forces, they whoop this Caliphate army. They killed the general in the process. This stopped the invasion. It gave the Carolingians some real street cred with the church because it in some ways like saved Christianity for this part of Europe, because the Arab invasion, um, which is the Muslim faith, was kind of just working their way all through this area, and taking over quite a bit of land. So when Martel dies, his son Pepin the Short, he took over. Pepin continued to get into the papacy's good graces. He was friendly with this dude Saint Boniface, who was a German monk, and Pepin wrote to the Pope. He was basically like, "Hey man, I have all this power," and this is not a direct translation. I have all this power over here. Shouldn't I be the king instead of this Merovingian dude? And the Pope Zachary, I think, he was like, "Hey man, solid idea." So the Pope travels across the Alps to crown Pepin king of the Franks. To really drive the point home, Pepin puts the last Merovingian king in a monastery. And the Merovingians, they have that divine right, right? And over the course of history, they always have long hair and beards. This is since Clovis. It's basically a signifier of that divine right. And once he's in the monastery, he has to cut his hair short like the monks. It was basically a physical sign of Pepin being like, now I have control and not this other guy. So, anyways, Pepin's kid, Charles the Great, aka Charlemagne. This dude is anywhere from 6 foot, I've heard all the way up to 6'7", which is in like the 99th percentile of people at the time. They're like 5'7" at the time, so if not shorter. Excuse me. So he's a warrior. He's got some serious military chops. He beats the Lombards on the battlefield, the Avars, Bavarians, Saxons, and he even took back Barcelona from that Muslim rule, which must have had the Pope almost falling out of his chair. I mean, he was a Christian ruler. He had a ton of power. So Christmas Day, he's praying in the church, and as the legend goes, the Pope basically like pops out and he's like, "Surprise! You're the Roman Emperor now. Isn't that cool?" So just to recap, how does this happen? Weak Merovingians, Carolingians are stronger. Byzantine protection was weak for the Pope. Lombards were a strong threat against the Pope. The monks really dug the Carolingians. Charlemagne's family had been acquiring power for a while, and Charlemagne, came from a line of Christians, which definitely didn't hurt. So this is how Charlemagne became the first Holy Roman Emperor. And he did a bunch of cool stuff. Like I said up top, he consolidated a lot of what we now know as modern day Europe. The Renaissance did a lot for the time. Was he kind of someone who killed a lot of innocent people? Sure, yeah, he definitely did. Definitely not downplaying that piece of it. But as with almost every ruler of the time, that was kind of a piece of the pie. So that's today. Maybe I'll do another episode about Charlemagne as a person in the future. Hope you enjoyed Sheep Shearer as a quest in the background today. I figured Charlemagne and shearing sheep was some fun alliteration. Sources linked down below. All right, guys. Till next time, take it easy.